This fic may include parental neglect, graphic depictions of violence, angst, and things getting worse before they get better. That is your warning. Onto the fic. Sword of Hope by Xander on AO3. Read by Lily6645. Chapter 2. Meetings and Beatings. Summary. Trigger warning. Violence and mentions of suicide. The meeting is early, isn't it? Something gone wrong then. Oh well. The chapter title is snappy, isn't it? Well, shit. Izuku Midoriya was late for his first day in a new year. The third and last year of middle school, which meant the bullying was going to be worse. It's always been the same. The last year of each school was worse than the last 2 years at each. A goodbye gift. Being late probably wouldn't help the start at all. He's still alive when he goes to lunch in one piece as well. Bakugo hadn't approached him yet, most likely due to the school hiring a new teacher, their new homeroom teacher. Bakugo was always more cautious when there was a new teacher, especially after one had given him detention for being brash and distracting in class. They didn't see that teacher the following week after he had spoken to the headmaster about Bakugo's parents being called about his destructive behavior. The school would do anything to keep Katsuki Bakugo, their prized to-be-hero student, out of trouble. If Izuku had a powerhouse or flashy quirk, he was sure he'd be treated the same. Might have gone as far as Bakugo did in bullying when it came to the quirkless. Izuku shuddered at the thought. He didn't want to imagine him hurting someone like they hurt him just because their feet had another bone. Sure, they got goosebumps when cold or touched. Emotionally, had to have awkward, obnoxious red shoes that stuck out in the crowd, basically asking people to hate crime them. Had a stupid, funny bone that the quirk didn't get that made them laugh even when sometimes it hurt. Morbid much? He had lost too many teeth to count. He never had to pay to go to a specialist doctor, though, to get 1 or 2 removed, like some unfortunate do. His peers had fixed that for him by beating him to a pulp, aiming for the teeth a lot, knowing it caused him pain. In reality, physically, the quirkless were weak. In Izuku's eyes, the quirkless dicks weren't wrong about that. They were less evolved and had to deal with the issue pre-quirk people dealt with. His teachers loved him in history lessons. He was an example of the weaker majority of the pre-quirk era. As his teacher loved reminding him, everything was designed to be against the quirkless, their bodies, society, most of the time their families as well. Who would want a quirkless kid? No one. No one cares about them. Usually, the only love they get past the age of 4 is by other quirkless people when they meet in certain locations to come together as one. Burn the suicide-baiting notes, the spider lilies, sometimes notes written by themselves, letters to their past self, or letters to the people that might care if they killed themselves. Most in bright red trainers. Some were lucky to have enough money to get specifically made shoes so they didn't stick out and can have a social life without their quirk status sticking out. People with weak or villainous quirks joined a lot as well. A stupid idea in Izuku's mind. Why would a quirk make someone a villain unless it changed their mental state enough to make them want to be a villain? They are powers that are used however the holder wants. No one's born a villain, so no quirk is villainous unless the holder decides that's the path for them. Holding back a yawn as best he could, Izuku packed up for the day. It was a Thursday, so he was already in a good mood. Yes, school started on a Thursday. It's not the weirdest thing. The school's done. Let's be real. It was the day to call Put Your Hands Up radio. Of course, he listens every night, even the nights when Present Mike isn't on. His coworker was amazing as well. Thursdays, though, meant he'd be a part of it. He would get to talk about anything he wished as long as it wasn't offensive. Izuku was offensive only in his mind. Some people deserved it. Never out loud, though. Izuku couldn't bring himself to offend others. It didn't feel right, as he knew how it felt and he didn't wish it on another. Oi, Deku! Great. He was being followed by Bakugo and his extras. Izuku honestly didn't know their names. He would if the loud, egotistical blonde ever called them by their names, or if Izuku ever listened in homeroom. Yes, Bakugo? Curse his stutter. Bakugo had now caught up fully as the now terrified, tired teen had stopped seeing no way of making it out without confrontation. Don't you try getting into UA. This again. They may have lifted the rule against quirkless students, but doesn't mean they want a fucking piece of shit like you. You'd die in the entrance exam. So he had seen Izuku write down UA on his list of schools he wanted to attend. They did it at the start and end of every year, so they had a plan. That explained the over-the-top scowl on his face, thought Izuku grumpily. Today was no longer a good day. They were in the middle of the street. This had happened before. It had been the first year of middle school. Izuku had done the same thing, decided to try for UA when he was old enough, and once again Bakugo noticed. He had followed Izuku into the middle of a busy street surrounded by shops, families and workers coming off a long day to pick up what they needed. When Bakugo had started being a bit more physical after not getting much of a reaction, but fear from the other teen, Izuku had looked around in hope that someone, anyone, would stop and help him. That someone would be a decent human being and help a first year not get beat up by a peer just because of being quirkless. No one helped. Everyone around had heard Bakugo shout about Izuku being quirkless, shout about how weak and useless he was, undeveloped, unwanted, unloved. A pebble, Bakugo would say, a pebble to be kicked until others were bored, thrown away, and forgotten after. No purpose. Bakugo had gotten what he wanted. Izuku's reaction. Hurt and betrayal shone across his face, a mess of tears, snot, and blood. tremendous despair at the fact that not one soul would help him. No one helped him then. No one will help him now. No one will be there when he gets home to clean and tend to his injuries. For Izuku, no one like that existed. Bakugo had backup this time. 3-on-1. Not the best odds, Izuku thought, despair already written on his face. He couldn't stop this. He was lucky last year that Bakugo hadn't noticed. The three were closing in on the subconsciously backing up Izuku, who wanted nothing but to despair. Every person saw them looking in disgust at Izuku like the 2 years before. Families would quickly walk their children away, talking about him like he couldn't hear them, or Izuku mused, some probably wanted him to hear the extra insults. To learn his place in society. Bakugo was close now. Izuku vaguely registered 2 different hands holding him back. The 2 unnamed tormentors must have walked behind to stop him moving or running. Izuku used to count how many times he'd get hit. He didn't anymore. It was too much to count. Not to mention the times he gets beaten to unconsciousness. He couldn't count when he wasn't awake. New tears traveled down his face unwillingly. Blood was already escaping out. Fresh wounds on his face, a broken nose added to the injuries. He must have looked a wreck. He was dropped at some point, left on the floor as 3 teens much stronger than him beat him till he was thoroughly bruised and bloodied. Strangers that could have helped threw insults as they walked or looked in disgust, not at the behavior shown by the kids beating another into the ground. No! To him for being born as he was. Hope had left Izuku's body. No one would help. They didn't last time. It stopped. Izuku heard shouting, though, from a new voice, a voice he recognized but was too out of it to know exactly who it was. Bakugo and his friends left running. The bloody teen realized the person who had saved him from further injuries was trying to talk to him to get some sort of response. Izuku looked up. The world was blurry, the person who saved him with it as well, but he could faintly hear them. A deep voice, a voice he knew but couldn't place. Bright blonde hair, long. Kid, are you with me? They must have noticed Kid squinting at him. A small, slow nod was given by the teen. He could see a small smile from the person, relieved to see the teen responsive. That was a change. It must be Izuku's delusional mind imagining a voice that he knew helped him, because why would anyone help him? He was sitting up now against a lamppost when a villain attack must have happened. All he remembered was a blurred but definitely frantic look on the unknown person, words of apologies, and the usual, "Stay here while I fix whatever the fuck just happened." Izuku didn't. He remembered his slow limp home, getting in the bath and tending to his wounds like he had many times before. He remembered his bed, the radio in the background, President Mike's voice coming in much later. His co-worker starting saying the hero was in a fight. Calls started, and before Izuku drifted into the darkness or a painful sleep, he had a strong feeling that he had forgotten something important. Whilst Mike was trying to calm himself down, not only did Emerald not call in the kid who was being beaten the life out of by some teenagers that got away before he could get a clear look at them, had disappeared after the blast. Villain had decided to mess with his day. All he could hope was that the kid either got to the hospital on his own or was noticed by another hero and helped. Emerald, on the other hand, Hisashi couldn't stop worrying about. It was going to be a long night. That is the end of Chapter 2 of Sword of Hope by Xander on AO3. If you like this, please go support the original author, link in the description below. Hope you have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye, kittens, and happy holidays!